For 60 years, the world saw Matt Dillon as the ultimate Hollywood leading man. But every time the cameras stopped rolling, he was fighting a silent battle that nearly cost him his mobility. How did a single, split-second mistake on set turn into a 6-decade nightmare of hidden pain? Today, we reveal the truth he kept from his fans until now. What you are about to hear is not just a story of a single accident. It is a profound, deeply disturbing look into the darkest corners of the entertainment industry, where the show must go on, no matter the catastrophic physical cost. We are going to uncover the brutal biomechanics of how a momentary lapse in judgment permanently altered a human body, the psychological torment of maintaining a flawless public image while enduring agonizing nerve damage, and the dangerous lengths to which beloved icons will go to protect their legacies. This is the anatomy of a 60-year mistake, and by the end of this journey, you will never look at a Hollywood action sequence the exact same way again. To truly grasp the gravity of a 60-year secret, we first have to understand the culture of the golden era of film and television, a time long before computer-generated imagery, green screens, and advanced stunt safety protocols. In those days, being a leading man meant doing the heavy lifting yourself. It meant riding the unruly horses, taking the brutal falls, and throwing the physical punches. There was a strict, unspoken rule in the industry: if you are bleeding, you tape it up. If your bone is fractured, you walk it off. The studio system practically owned these actors, treating them as invincible, revenue-generating assets rather than fragile human beings. This relentless machine demanded absolute perfection and violently punished vulnerability. If word leaked to the press or the executives that a star was physically compromised, insurance premiums would immediately skyrocket, and their lucrative career could vanish overnight. They would be permanently labeled a liability. Therefore, hiding pain became as essential to an actor's craft as memorizing lines or hitting their marks. We see the dangerous echoes of this culture even today, but the foundation of this toxic expectation was laid decades ago. The human body is a miraculous, highly resilient machine, yet it keeps an absolute, unforgiving score. When trauma occurs, especially high-impact, sudden trauma to the musculoskeletal system, the structural damage rarely stays isolated. A slight tear in a crucial ligament, an untreated hairline fracture in the tibia, or a compressed lumbar disc might seem entirely manageable in the moment with a quick shot of cortisone and a few days of rest. But the long-term compounding effects are devastating. This is the precise, high-pressure environment that birthed the nightmare. The overwhelming pressure to maintain the illusion of absolute invincibility forced a devastating compromise, trading decades of future comfort and mobility for a few fleeting seconds of cinematic glory. Let us break down exactly what happens biologically and mechanically during that fateful, split-second mistake on set. Picture a high-octane scene requiring a highly complex physical maneuver. The director yells action, the actor's adrenaline aggressively spikes, and the body's natural pain receptors are instantly, chemically muted by a massive surge of cortisol and epinephrine. This evolutionary fight-or-flight response is incredible for immediate survival, but absolutely disastrous for injury prevention. When the catastrophic mistake happens, whether it is a mistimed jump from a moving vehicle, a compromised landing angle on a hard surface, or a sudden failure in a heavy prop, the immediate kinetic force is absorbed directly into the fragile joints and the spinal column. In this specific type of high-impact trauma, the articular cartilage, which acts as the body's natural shock absorber, is violently compressed and sheared. Unlike muscle tissue, cartilage does not have a direct blood supply, meaning its ability to naturally heal itself is practically non-existent. When the articular cartilage is violently sheared away from the subchondral bone, the body attempts to heal itself by blindly laying down calcified deposits. These osteophytes, commonly known as bone spurs, form jagged, razor-like edges inside a joint capsule that is supposed to be perfectly smooth and frictionless. Imagine throwing a handful of sharp sand into the delicate gears of a finely tuned mechanical watch. That is exactly what happens inside a traumatized joint. Over the next 60 years, this single moment of acute trauma initiates a relentless cascade of degenerative changes. The joint entirely loses its structural integrity. Bone begins to violently grind on bone, leading to severe, crippling osteoarthritis. Every single step generates thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch, driving directly onto exposed nerve endings that have been stripped of their protective myelin sheathing. The agony is not just physical, it is a blinding electrical shock. But the damage goes much deeper than just the localized joint. The central nervous system becomes permanently hypersensitized. The brain begins to subconsciously alter the body's entire gait and posture to protect the injured area, a dangerous biomechanical phenomenon known as compensatory movement. This means that a severe, hidden injury to a knee or a hip will eventually destroy the lower back, forcefully pull the spine out of alignment, and create a devastating chain reaction of agonizing pain throughout the entire muscular system. The actor is left to silently navigate a daily reality, where simply standing up out of a chair feels like stepping on shards of broken glass. Yet they must confidently step onto the red carpet, flash a $1 million smile to the flashing cameras, and completely mask the profound physiological deterioration happening beneath their perfectly tailored suits. They are forced to become a master of biomechanical deception, learning to walk smoothly despite a skeletal structure that is screaming in violent protest. The physical deterioration, however horrifying, is only half of the story. The psychological burden of hiding a 60-year mistake introduces a level of cognitive dissonance and mental fatigue that most people can barely comprehend. You might naturally think that immense wealth, global adoration, and access to the best medical care in the world would act as a buffer against chronic suffering. Counterintuitively, the exact opposite is true. The massive fame actually becomes a solitary confinement prison. When millions of people look at you and see an untouchable, rugged icon of strength, the internal pressure to uphold that impossible facade becomes utterly paralyzing. You cannot show weakness. You cannot grimace when signing autographs for adoring fans. You cannot limp when the paparazzi are hiding in the bushes waiting for a moment of vulnerability. This forced suppression of authentic suffering leads to profound psychological isolation. The actor begins to live a grueling double life. In public, they are the robust, invincible leading man who can conquer any obstacle. In the absolute, quiet privacy of their home, they are relying heavily on mobility aids, enduring agonizing daily physical therapy sessions, and staring blankly at a ceiling while managing chronic nerve pain that no amount of money can cure. This forces the individual into an extreme state of constant hypervigilance. They are perpetually scanning their environment, not for physical threats, but for everyday obstacles that might expose their devastating secret. A normal flight of stairs becomes a terrifying mountain to climb. A slightly uneven red carpet becomes a dangerous minefield. The immense psychological energy required to constantly calculate every single footstep, to ensure the painful limp is completely suppressed while flashing a charismatic, effortless smile to the press, causes severe adrenal fatigue. The stress hormone cortisol remains chronically elevated in their bloodstream, which paradoxically increases systemic inflammation throughout the body, making the physical joint pain significantly worse. Furthermore, this toxic dynamic creates a bizarre, heartbreaking relationship with the art of acting itself. The very profession that brought them unimaginable glory is the exact same profession that violently robbed them of their physical freedom. Every time they are forced to sit and watch their old classic movies, they are not seeing a triumphant performance. They are watching the exact, terrifying moment their body was permanently broken. They are forced by society to celebrate the very instrument of their own destruction. This strange, paradoxical relationship with their own legacy means they are widely celebrated for the specific action that is slowly destroying them from the inside out, creating a permanent psychological loop of silent resentment, stubborn pride, and unbearable isolation. So, how exactly does someone successfully hide such profound physical devastation from the entire world for over half a century? The daily mechanics of masking a chronic, degenerative injury require a staggering, exhausting level of orchestration. It starts hours before the sun even comes up. The morning routine for an actor in this condition is not about optimal fitness or building muscle. It is strictly about thawing out a frozen, locked-up body. It requires hours of specialized, excruciating mobility work, deep tissue manipulation, intense heat therapy, and precisely timed anti-inflammatory medications just to achieve a basic, acceptable baseline level of function before leaving the house. Wardrobe suddenly becomes a highly strategic tool for deception. Custom-made shoes are carefully engineered with hidden orthotics to seamlessly correct the severe leg-length discrepancies caused by decades of joint degradation. Tailored trousers are cut specifically with extra width to hide the heavy, rigid mechanical braces required to keep the compromised joints from completely buckling under their own weight. On set, the physical deception is elevated to an absolute art form. Every single movement is heavily choreographed behind the scenes, to minimize weight bearing on the damaged side of the body. If you watch closely with a trained eye, you will notice the subtle, brilliant tricks of the trade. Casually leaning against a heavy oak table during a long, emotional dialogue scene, making sure the camera angle completely obscures a stiff, unnatural gait, or heavily relying on body doubles and stand-ins for even the most basic walking shots. The actionable takeaway from this tragic reality is profoundly relevant to every single one of us watching today. Pain is not just an annoying symptom to be pushed through. It is a critical biological signal. When we aggressively ignore the body's immediate demand for rest and rehabilitation in the stubborn pursuit of a short-term goal, whether that is stubbornly finishing a marathon on a bad knee, pushing through a heavy lift at the gym with compromised form, or relentlessly meeting a grueling deadline at work while ignoring severe back pain, we are making a highly dangerous, irreversible gamble. We are recklessly borrowing against our future mobility at an exorbitant, unforgiving interest rate. The human body will always, eventually, collect its massive debt. True longevity in any field requires the profound humility to stop and actually listen to the warning signs. It demands that we ruthlessly prioritize our structural integrity over our fragile egos. The exact moment we arrogantly try to outsmart our own physiology, we set the stage for our own private, decades-long battle with chronic agony. This relentless, unspoken demand for ultimate physical sacrifice is not an isolated phenomenon limited to one specific actor. Throughout the long, bloody history of entertainment, we see this exact pattern repeating with devastating, life-altering consequences. Consider the legendary action star Jackie Chan, whose skull was literally caved in during the intense filming of Armor of God. A slight, momentary miscalculation during a seemingly routine tree jump resulted in a jagged piece of bone violently piercing his brain tissue. While he miraculously survived the horrific ordeal, the permanent hearing loss and lingering neurological echoes stayed with him forever. Or consider the iconic silent film star Buster Keaton, who literally broke his neck during a dangerous water tower stunt and mind-bogglingly continued filming for years, completely unaware of the massive cervical fracture until a routine X-ray decades later revealed the horrific structural damage he had been living with. Even in modern times, we regularly witness actors like Tom Cruise shattering his ankle during a massive rooftop jump in Mission Impossible, yet remarkably pulling himself up to finish the shot on a broken limb before finally collapsing. These are not just inspiring testaments to incredible human willpower. They are stark, terrifying reminders of the entertainment industry's brutal baseline expectation. The cinematic camera demands a blood sacrifice, and the actors willingly offer their fragile bodies to the altar of entertainment, overwhelmingly resulting in permanent, irreversible changes to their overall quality of life. The 60-year mistake is ultimately a profound tragedy of dedication and duty. It is a haunting, lingering reminder that the glittering, flawless surface of global fame is almost always built on a hidden foundation of profound, silent suffering. For decades, the entire world loudly applauded a man who was fighting a brutal private war just to stand upright and deliver his lines. He gave us his absolute, unwavering best, while quietly enduring the absolute, agonizing worst in the shadows. The legacy of this incredible individual is no longer just about the iconic, beloved roles he played, but about the staggering, unbelievable resilience he demonstrated every single day when the director finally called cut. But this brutal reality of physical sacrifice is not just limited to sudden, catastrophic accidents on film sets. In fact, there is a much more insidious, incredibly silent killer destroying the bodies of millions of regular people every single day, without them even realizing it is happening. It has to do with the simple, everyday postural habits that are secretly tearing your joints apart from the inside right at this very moment. To find out what these silent destroyers are, and how to permanently stop them before it is entirely too late, you need to hear the shocking truth we have uncovered next.